was it like watching yourselves in that movie for the very first time?
What was it like watching the film for the first time, seeing yourself in the film? Everybody. You may begin.
Well, I wasn't really watching myself. I was watching this idiot in a mask. What else can I say? I mean, I didn't have any lines or anything, so I wasn't doing any high-powered acting and, you know, posing. That's about all I can say for myself in that particular film.
Yeah, I'd have to say about the same thing. You know, you don't see your expression. You know you're coming out. You know when the scares are, so you're not scared, obviously. You watch yourself like you can imagine any actor watching themselves in a movie. It's a little awkward, but it's, as you say, you know, if you don't, there's no expressions, there's no this and that. It's a little strange.
Well, there was one incident. I don't know if you remember it or not, but when I went up to the bedroom chasing Corey and his mother, his mother, and she hit me over the head with the TV set. You remember that shot? Yeah. Okay. Well, I still had it over my head, and I started down the steps not knowing where the steps were, and I went clear to the end of them, end over end. The mask went about 20 feet away. What's the guy's name who made the makeup?
Tom Savini.
Tom Savini's looking through the window and said, "Oh my God, there goes the makeup." All I thought about was the makeup.
Just the idea of watching yourself on screen. It's always a kind of, I think one's natural tendency is just to kind of divorce yourself from that character on the screen. It's, for me anyway, it's like watching somebody else. I don't really associate with it. If I tried, I could, but on just watching it, I don't. It's like I'm watching anybody else, or I try to make it seem that way anyway.
Another question? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask, when you thought of ad-libbing, I've always heard the story that when you take the young man to the wall, you kind of tilt your head, but that was your idea?
So it's a question for...
Yeah, I don't know if you could hear that. This was a question about the scene where the character stabs the man in the chest and pins him to a wall, and then he does a little tilt of his head. She was asking if that was something that was improv or something I added. No, that was John saying literally as the film is rolling, tilt your head a little bit to the right, more. You know, he just talked over the shot, and there's no dialogue, so he's not ruining anything. And to get that, I'm sure we did it a couple of times. It was very effective.
Sir with the long hair.
Did any of y'all do any rituals or anything, like get in the mindset of your character? Like, okay, I got to get in the mindset of this crazy psychotic killer. Did y'all do anything to prep for that?
So the question is, did you do anything special to get into character? Did you have to psych yourself up to play this killer?
Boy, did I prep. Yeah, I never sat with the cast. I never talked to the cast. I sat completely away from them. And if people came on the set, I went up to the dressing room and stayed away from them. And the director just thought I was real snuggy, and he told the executive producer, he said, "What's wrong with this guy, Ted White? He doesn't speak to anybody." He said, "Well, just leave him alone." And that's the way I prepped for the show. I thought possibly if I got too friendly with the kids that were in the show, that the kill scenes would not look as good as they would if I had not been friends with them. And the only time I actually talked to them and worked with them was when we were preparing to do one of those scenes. And even then, I never got overly friendly with them, other than to tell them that they were definitely not going to get hurt. That's what I could take for them.
And Luke?
I was told at the beginning of the movie, the director told me just to scream. I mean, that was my dialogue for the opening scene. Just first you sleep. You're sleeping. You wake up. You see the skull with worms, you scream, you keep on screaming, and that's the end of the scene. That's it. Oh, you burn up. The alcohol mixes with the candle flame, and off you go. Sounds simple enough. Well, I guess it was about 10 takes later, with the screaming and everything. By that time, I found out later that this was filmed in North Tonawanda someplace in the middle of the woods. By that time, I found out later that the cops had come into the middle of the woods. They were kind of on the outskirts of the production because they had gotten a lot of complaints that there was a lot of screaming coming from the woods. But it was only little me. But I enjoyed the workout anyway.
There was one point, I think the first shot I remember doing was there's some scenes where the character crosses the street at night, and starting to come in and get Jamie or one of the other characters. And I remember we were about to shoot it, and I just kind of stopped, and I realized John and I had never talked about what I was supposed to do, other than to put on a mask. And I said, okay, wait, John, wait a minute. And so I actually pulled him over and said, John, I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk over. Who is this guy? What am I supposed to do? And it was basically an actor asking what his motivation is, kind of being a little Brando, And John took it as that, and he just looked at me like this, and he said, just walk across the street. Couldn't be bothered. This is the genius John Carpenter.
Where's John Carpenter thing? He's talking about John Carpenter so much I have to tell it to you. I just did a show with John Carpenter 4 months ago in Chicago, and he was there signing. I hadn't seen him since Starman. And so when we run into each other, I said, John, how you doing? Remember me? He said, do I remember you? You were the worst thing in the show. That's your friend John Carpenter.
I like it.
I just wanted to say that one other thing that was improvised was I was told you're sleeping. So all of a sudden I decided to make the death scene from Anna Karenina out of it or something like that. I started to snore. They left it in. It's fine.
So it's for me. How many takes do you have to do the scene where PJ asks if you see anything you like? That's for me.
How many takes did I have to do with PJ saying that, do you see anything you like? I don't know. I hope you.
I was going to ask you what she was like on set.
PJ?
Yeah, PJ.
Oh, yeah.
That sort of answers the question.
Yeah. Well, she's as she is as she comes off. She's very bubbly and friendly.
Question right here.
Just a quick one for Nick again. The one thing that always impressed me about John Carpenter's movies is when there was no dialogue, his music. And I know most of the time that's probably all post after the acting and stuff. But did he ever at any time, in order to inspire you or any other scenes, would he have some of his music to help set the scene?
This is a question, did John use music to help set the scene, since he wrote his own music, as you know, probably. And he comes from a musical background. His father, I believe, is a music teacher, and he's a good rock and roll guy. So he did not use music, though, as a way to enhance the mood in the movie. Never did it.
Right here.
I just want to say that you guys are just amazing actors, and you have just created such a strong, powerful legacy. And I'm wondering, actually, two things. If you could go back and change anything, would you go back and change it? And also, you know, people see you as characters, have you had a hard time getting people to adjust to you as a person and not the characters that you have played?
So the question is, if you could go back and change something about your performance, would you? And to be honest, I didn't quite get the second part. Sorry, what was the second part of the question? I didn't quite.
If you have a hard time, if people had a hard time adjusting to you as people, as yourselves, and not being afraid or of your characters that you have played. I mean, obviously you play characters, but do you have a hard time having people adjust
You
to
mean
you?
people on set or their families?
Your family, people, obviously, they, you know, has it been hard for you?
Okay, so has it been sort of hard? Do people kind of think differently of you now that you've played this killer?
Okay, that guy can quit.
Well, my wife doesn't look at me quite in the same way. It's, in a way it's difficult, in a way it's easy. I mean, you can differentiate, you know, we don't walk around in daily life, you know, killing and slashing and all that good, gory stuff. So people can usually tell that, yes, there is a difference between that character on the screen and the character I'm seeing now, unless you want to, you know, you want to put something over and be a little mean, but that's, you know, I think I have heard, and from sitting at the left of these two gentlemen, and being with them at this convention, I think it's a truism that the guys and gals, but guys that I know of, who play mean SOBs or psychotics are generally the most likable and gentle and interesting people. I really mean that.
There are times when my wife didn't go with me for a couple of the conventions, and then she went with me to New York. And this is not saying something that shouldn't have happened. Two girls walked up and in their 30s, and the one lady said, "Mr. White," and she didn't know my wife was my wife. She thought she was one of the volunteers helping, I guess. And she said, "Would you mind signing on my breast?" And I said, "No." So she immediately took off her blouse, and on the top of her breast, left breast, was my picture tattooed on. It's a true story. And I signed under her breast. And my wife said, "I'll be all these conventions with you for a while." Just one more. This was at another convention in New York. A lady and two kids walked up, and she started looking through the pictures, and I'd see her pick up a picture and turn and look behind her about 20 feet away, and she'd hold the picture up, and I was trying to find out who she was showing it to, but I never could figure out who it was because there were so many people in there. And this went on for like 10 or 15 minutes, and she finally held it up, and then she said, "Would you sign this to Joe," or I can't remember the name, and I said, is that your husband?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, you taking it to him?" She said, "No, he's here." And I said, "Well, where is he?" She said, "He's standing right over there." I said, "Well, tell him to come over and I'll give it to him." She said, "No, he won't come over." And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, he just won't come over." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll take it to him." She said, "No, he'll run." You think I'm kidding? They are people out there that hate me. And they are still scared of me. One more story. When I went up to do Starman, Jeff Bridges, I had done 3 in a row with Jeff Bridges prior to that. He and I were sitting out in the driveway in some chairs waiting for the show to start. And the newspaper men came in, we were interviewing Jeff, talking about different shows he'd done. We had just finished doing Against All Odds. And they said, this and this and this, and they were carrying on a conversation, and then the first assistant called Jeff in to do a scene inside the restaurant. He said, talk to Ted, he just finished doing a film. So they turned to me and said, what did you do? And I said, well, I just finished doing a thing called Jason. He said, what? And I said, yeah, Friday the 13th. And he said, what did you do in that? And I said, I was Jason. He said, really? Well, they put it in the paper. Now the next day, we came out at the same time in the evening. There was 300 cars in the parking lot. And I said, Jeff, you're going to be signing autographs till you're blue in the face. And as we pulled in, they started yelling, where's Jason? Where's Jason? That shows you the power of Jason.
In answer to the second part of your question, it was, convenient for me because I've acted exactly one time with a mask on. So not many people where I live in Los Angeles, are, when I go to shopping or something like that, pull me over and say, Nick Castle, this, and this. The only time that ever happened, actually the first time that happened is I went to a convention in Pasadena, near where I live, and to visit Tommy Wallace, who many of you I'm sure know is the director of the third Halloween. And people recognize me from fans like yourself. That's the only people that actually recognize me. Otherwise, the rest of my career was backstage directing and writing.
Another question? Right here in the eye.
Any of the kill scenes bother y'all more than any of the other ones?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Does any of the scenes where y'all kill somebody bother you more than any other scene?
Are there any scenes that in particular bother you when you kill people? Any specific kills that bother you?
Not enough blood, not enough gore, not enough suffering. As an actor, you really want to get into that, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I would say that I wouldn't want to be subjected to watching that, like the character in Clockwork Orange, watching violence for 24 hours at a time. It can get to you, but then in the last analysis, people have to realize, if you have a normal mind and you are beyond the age of, say, 14 or 15, you realize that it's all make-believe, it's all made up, and that most people, thank goodness, couldn't possibly act the way they do on screen. That's my answer.
Actually, Lou, while you have the microphone, I just want to ask you, do you have any memories of shooting the infamous raft scene in The Burning? It's this huge kill that Tom Savini just kind of blew his special effects load on.
I was wondering how you were going to finish it. It was fun. It was all Savini. You were right when I didn't really hurt anybody. It was all Savini. The water was cold. I can tell you that much. But Savini and the stuntman did a lot of that work. As far as that was concerned, anyway. That's my answer. And I'm sticking to it.
Question right here.
You gentlemen have become iconic monster figures. In Hollywood, have you ever crossed paths with some of the Karloff family, the Universal? Who have you met in Hollywood that has been involved as a monster icon?
Who have you? I think you have a story about Boris Karloff you might want to tell.
I had the pleasure of working with Boris Karloff on Playhouse 90 many years ago. What would you like to know about the man?
Just what was it like meeting him? Another iconic monster actor.
Well, that iconic monster was drunk. I think I told you this, didn't I?
You did tell me this, but now you can tell everyone else.
Playhouse 90, if you don't remember, was 90 minutes of live television. And then when I say live, as we shot, it went out to you and you got it. There was no in between there. It was an all live thing for 90 minutes called Playhouse 90. And he had been drinking quite a bit on the set, and they called his agent and said, come down, Boris is getting out of hand with his drinking, and we need for you to talk to him. So the agent came down, and he was having a word with him, and he said, they're telling me that your drinking is causing a problem on the set. And he said, well, that's not the problem. He said, they're crazy. Now, while they were talking, another part of the show was being shot on another set right close to us. He said, I'll show you what I do. And he walked onto the set that we were filming on. He said, I kicked this old door open, and he kicked it, and the people on the set that were acting all stopped. Now this is being filmed. He said, then I turned this desk over, and the agent realized he was on a live set, and they were on the air. And he gets forced, he cut him by the hand and started leading him out. Well, if he wasn't drunk, that would have never happened. But I'm not saying that he drank day in and day out, but at the times that I worked with him on that show, he didn't let too many days go by that he didn't sniff the bottle. As for other monsters, the only other two that I know of are sitting here with me.
I think that is compliments. I know what you said.
A question right here.
Christopher Newcastle. I heard a rumor that there's a third escape from script that exists.
So Nick Hassel co-wrote Escape from New York. A question about an alternate script.
I've only heard rumors as well. I mean, nothing that I've been involved with. All I've heard for years now is that there was an attempt to do a remake of Escape from New York. And Gerard Butler was involved at one point to be Snake Plissken. That's the latest I've heard. If anybody else has info, they can tell us.
There's probably someone out there that knows. Right here.
Did you guys have any groupies? You got any good stories with that?
Did you have groupies?
Oh my God. What are you going to say?
He does have groupies, and he signed their breasts.
One movie doesn't make a groupie. No.
Well, there are groupies constantly. I mean, you can't stop that. And but I've never been a big famous actor. I do get noticed from time to time from the shows that I've done. But yeah, I have people come up and tell me about the shows they saw that I did 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And it's nice to hear it. It's nice to hear it. They remember you from 60 or 50 years ago. So if they're groupies, then I guess I could put them in that category.
Does Cropsey have any groupies?
If I do, they might be in an institution somewhere. but anyway, I think it's a natural thing in the business. It's to the people who don't work in the business, it's a very glamorous thing all the time. It's all glitter, and a lot of people are attracted by that. Same as the rock scene as well. But I'm not going to mention any names. I'm just not. I don't have any besides. I'm a happily married man. I keep telling myself that. I'm a happily married man.
So we're getting close to the end, so we only have time for one more question, and your arm is going to fall off if I don't pick you. So.
When you go to these conventions and you've met other actors that have portrayed Michael or Jason, do you guys ever argue or debate who did it better, or who came up with what, or are you guys all friends when you meet at the shows? Or
So the question is there any kind of friendly conflict when you meet the other actors that play Jason or Michael Myers, or do you just guys get along as a brotherhood?
I hate them all. No, listen. It's a group of guys that are really fun to be around. They all have stories, and I wish I could remember all the stories I've heard from them over the years, but as most of you know, maybe a few of you don't know, we lost one of our Jasons recently, and believe me, it was heartfelt to all of the guys. We're not close friends, but when we're together, we have a good time. We talk about things that doesn't even pertain to the show. I think Kane Hodder was probably one of the great Jasons of all time, that we did 3 or 4 of them in a row. And I don't know, all the guys all think highly of him and of each other. They get together and have great conversations. It's not about the show, it's just about being who you are and what you've done in the business.
And Nick, do you have anything to add?
Well, actually, the first time I met any of them was this show that I told you about in Indianapolis, where Jamie Lee Curtis came for the one and only time, and we all had a panel quite like this, and so questions from the audience. That's the first time I met the guys. We went out and had some beers afterwards. It was a lot of fun. So, but no conflict, nothing exciting to tell.
Okay, everyone, let's give it up for